guys, welcome to another edition of the CaughtAtPoint show. Dave and I, after a long time away from podcasting, Dave was vacationing and I was actually sleeping. I had become like a bear who had gone into migration. So we are back with this new episode of the CaughtAtPoint show, and our aim this year is to bring you much better content, much livelier content, much more intriguing content where we can give more valued opinions. We'll get better guests and we'll just make CaughtAtPoint stronger. Welcome, Dave.
Hi, Pranay. It's good to be back, and very, very happy New Year to our listeners and watchers and
Happy New
viewers.
Year. Yeah. Hmm.
And
What about
I hope 2022 brings us amazing cricketing action and
yeah.
great health and peace and prosperity to the wider world, including the cricket watching public. So, Pranay,
Well
what's
said,
up?
Dave.
How's it going?
Very good, man. So Dave, so viewers, before I start questioning Dave, this podcast is essentially on South African cricket, which is very close to me, and Dave also really values them after India and West Indies. So we're going to talk about the recently concluded India tour of South Africa, talking about South Africa's squad to New Zealand, as well as the new sensation that's come up the ranks in South African cricket in the Under-19 World Cup, Mr. Deval Prevish. So those are going to
Not
be the
AB de
three,
Villiers.
not AB de Villiers, not junior AB, but Deval Prevish. So these are going to be a 3 points of discussion today. So starting with India's tour of South Africa, Dave, before we get into that, this was the first time I think Rahul Dravid had something in terms of an overseas tour where his performance, his coaching skills would be truly tested.
Yeah,
So how do you think that happened? And the other part of this question is that everyone had pitted this as India's final frontier,
yeah.
possibly because they almost won in England before they called off the last Test match. They won in Australia, and now South Africa was possibly the last place they had to conquer. So, what was Dravid's mindset going into South Africa, and what did you think about India's chances as the final frontier?
Well, to be honest, I thought that India had quite strong chances of overcoming South Africa because let's not forget that this is the South African team which is in the rebuilding phase, and they didn't have the star power as such, apart from big names like Kagiso Rabada and Temba Bavuma is a very, very stable leader, and his leadership shown very brightly this time. So there weren't. I'm not sure if the purist was sort of backing South Africa, or if not backing, then essentially considered South Africa as a mighty force, which it actually turned out to be. So I think in some ways it's also good. It's a loud wake up alarm for India's head coach, Mr. Rahul Dravid. And I think anybody who says that there are going to be some tough decisions that he's going to make in terms of the test build-up of the Indian team in the near future is absolutely right on the money, because the test outcome completely supports that point instead of negating it. And I think that going forward, India, which truth be known, has the problem of plenty with so many batters eyeing the number three and the number five position, should now actually consider under Dravid's tutelage and whosoever is going to be the new test captain going forward to really stabilize the batting lineup and learn the vital lesson that the South African tour taught us, which is to never consider a team in rebuilding as being some kind of a meek force, which I think we may have taken South Africa this time around. And as far as the frontier goes, then I think the frontier still remains at large, unconquered. So it's over to the next time, which won't be under Virat Kohli's captaincy for sure this time, as we know it.
Hmm. So, Dave, if I were to draw an analogy when the stalwarts of South African cricket called it a day, like Francois du Plessis, AB de Villiers, Hashim Amla, JP Dumini, Do you see that transition phase now holding true for Indian cricket also? The reason I ask you this is because South Africa for the last 2 years has been pitted as a team in transition. Would you see the same thing happening with Indian cricket?
Well, yes, Indian cricket is now beginning a new chapter, and it is a new chapter with Virat Kohli, but without him being the captain. So I think in some ways it's kind of a new beginning of sorts for Kohli once again. It's kind of a second wind as I see it. It's kind of a second wind as how Kohli's diehard fans see it. You know, fans who've stayed awake until the midnight hours to just anticipate the 71st Test 100, 71st International 100, I beg your pardon, coming along. So I think it's a new beginning. You have such amazing talents like Shreyas Iyer around. Rishabh Pant really has grown in stature as a player, and as a player with well-rounded abilities, which came to the fore courtesy his fantastic century recently in the South Africa Test. So you have some exciting
And the one day
talents,
also.
and the one days also he was in good form in the
Yeah.
ODIs. So
I
I
think he
think
scored a century there also.
did Pant score a century in
I,
ODIs? I think you're
I think
confusing me
so.
here. I don't think he scored a century
No.
in any of the ODIs. So I think we should
I
actually.
clearly remember his test century, which was really fantastic. But I think he
Yeah, I
did
mean
one in
he
the
did. I
ODI.
think 52% of the scoring in
Hmm.
that particular occasion. So no, he made an 85, Pranay, and that
85.
85 came at PAL. He never scored a century. So, but
Hmm.
thanks for adding 15 more runs to his bucket list. You know, as fans, we won't mind that. I've become a huge admirer of Rishabh Pant. But I think there's one clear area that he would want to work on, and it's basically his skills behind the wicket. There were
Hmm.
a couple of dropped opportunities in the test matches as one saw. And coming back to India, beginning a new chapter, absolutely. One wishes to see more of Rohit Sharma in wearing the test whites. He has really proven his worth. He's proven himself to be the worth of a salt in the test arena. With some lanky hundreds in the last couple of seasons. He was missed dearly this time around, and the results showed that the scorecards revealed that clearly. And another thing is KL Rahul and Mayank Agarwal have actually given us a kind of a solid picture that if India indeed were to fix on these two batsmen going forward as being test openers, then it's a formidable opening pair. The big question, however, having said that, remains as to who comes in now next as number three. Correct me if I'm wrong. The next test that India uh, plays in the year 2022, where we are in, is not going to be before the second half of the year, and that too in the latter half. So there's not too many opportunities that await Rahane and Pujara, who Twitter found a way of ridiculing by calling them Purane, by clubbing Pujara and Rahane,
Was it?
as if to say
I
that,
wasn't aware of that.
yeah,
But you
you have
can't
to
be
be
treating
outside of South
stalwarts like
Africa.
that. I mean, if they've been out of form, that's fine. I mean, everyone has their phases, and then it's time to call it a day.
They've been
But,
hugely out of form, and in
but that
particular,
criticism is very uncalled for. यार. पुराने की जरूरत नहीं थी मेरे हिसाब से.
पुराने की जरूरत नहीं थी, but the
Hmm.
criticism is well timed, it is timely, and it is centered around their consistency at being inconsistent in scoring whenever Team India wants.
But Dave, speaking about Rahane, his 50 in the first test ka first innings, when
Hmm.
India was totally on top of South Africa, scoring the only 300 plus score that we saw in the three-match test series, was quite something. I think he scored a quick 50 when he was partnering KL Rahul. And then from there, the series started going downhill for him. So what do you think about that?
So, so his scores in the four innings are 20, 48, 58, and not. So that doesn't really help. And then there was also an outing in the final test where he scored 9 and 1. So
Hmm.
I mean that says it all, as a veteran of the game now. Not that he's very, very old, but this is somebody who has against his name experience of 140 Test match innings, 82 Test matches, season closing on 5,000 runs. This is somebody who actually made his debut back in 2013, so it's almost a decade long outing for Ajinkya Rahane. But I mean, he was found wanting even in the series against England last year when we went to England, when India went to England. So I think the time has come for India to actually sit both these great batsmen down, Pujara and Rahane, that is, and make them basically aware of the responsibilities that they actually have. Not that they aren't aware of it, but there are times when you have to be retold about your importance. You have to examine things very closely. You have to understand the construct of test matches because these are two batsmen whose bats have woven around beautiful careers and have thereby helped India take the big right curve, the up end curve in its test journey. Let's not forget. I mean that India, even though it lost the finals, but it reached the finals of the World Test Championship. So somewhere these two batsmen all along these years have played their roles. But where do we go from here? Where do they go from here? Um, Effectively speaking, both these batsmen are just one format players. They are not afforded any chances in ODIs and T20s. Rahane has played both, but one doesn't actually, practically speaking, see Rahane ever wearing the blue color again in any of the shorter formats of the game. So essentially speaking, what Pujara and Rahane have is the 5 day game. So if they underperform in one series, given the age bracket where they are in, one doesn't see that many chances coming their way. So that's why I'm saying that both of them find themselves in a precarious situation. They are humble achievers. They are amazing batsmen. They have proven themselves to be worthy of all the hype that they generate in the past. But what is happening in the present? And that's somewhere that Rahane and Pujara will have to reconsider themselves and basically apply themselves all over again if it comes down to that.
Okay, so let me put a question to you. Do you see Rahane and Pujara calling it quits or calling time on their test career themselves before the next test series happens? Or do you think that India will drop them and then that'll be it for them?
Pranay, I honestly don't have an answer to that. Yeah, I don't. All I can say is it will be sad to see both these players out. I would, speaking of myself individually, personally, I would be sadder to see test lineup without Pujara because I think when you compare Rahane and Pujara, I think Pujara was somebody who was manifested with the job of becoming the next Mr. Dependable, the big solid bat at number
Mhm.
three. He did that resolutely well for the first half of his career, but the last couple of seasons have seen a strange dip in form. There have been innings like the 90 odd, the 90 something he played in England. We did that episode with Aditya of Cairo Sports where
Yeah.
we were actually anticipating him. He ended the day with Kohli at the other end and he was not out on 92 or 91. And we expected all of him to get to the three figure score the next day. That wasn't to be. So, I they have themselves to blame at, and I Rahane should have ideally hung up his boots if you were to put a gun on my head and ask me, because really the runs have really dried up, and he sees around him so many younger batsmen. As I said, Iyer is there. Um, Pant is already in dashing form. Every test match comes and goes, and we find Pant in a more resolute form. Uh, he's been the architect of the Gabba win. Um, him being the chief architect, there were other architects also of that victory. So, you know, Chakravarti and other people around. So I think that spot is really becoming a tight fixture for both of for both these talents. So it would be sad to see a team without Pujara, but then who does the team blame? It can't blame itself. It has to blame Pujara for his own downfall.
Mhm. Now, coming out of South African cricket for the Test series at least, what do you think about Dean Elgar's leadership? That's one. And second is his batting form.
Oh, he was fantastic. Yeah. He's one of the last remaining Test purist batsmen around. And for somebody who's 34, he put in all the wise experience into play, and a very calm batsman. And you don't see Dean Elgar going for a lot of shots early on into an innings, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, helps him to forge those long periods of stay on the wicket, because he understands the need of being there, out in the middle. And I think he's also not too far away from 5,000 Test match runs. We're talking about a stable batsman who has against his name 126 Test innings, 72 Test matches. He's a fantastic batsman, and as a captain, he came to the fore. Definitely, somebody like a Faf would have been a very handy pick. But then, there's no point in talking about that, because he already called time on his career. But then it was heartening to see, in the absence of people like Faf and De Kock, who's no more a part of Test match. Dean Elgar came good with that fantastic 96 not out at Johannesburg innings. I won't forget, batting deep into the day. Holding the fort for so many overs. The real, the classic grilling Test batsmanship display that you can only expect from a veteran like him. So it was fantastic. And he's one of the reminders that the spark of the Proteas fire is intact, and the fact that it is actually glowing brightly, and so it should.
Hmm. So there was another batter who at least impressed me, and a lot was written on him, called as
Why don't you
Keegan
emphasize on that? I want to hear more
Dean
about him.
Elgar.
Go ahead.
So yeah, for me, there are two things which describe Dean Elgar. One is body blows, and second is tough cricket.
Mm.
He might not look elegant in his batting. He might not look like your typical southpaws who play those fantastic strokes. But one thing I can tell you, when South Africa is down, Dean Elgar is up.
Well said. Well said.
So that's exactly what got us, I mean, us as in South Africa, the victory in the Wanderers test and then in the Newlands test, because he instilled that self belief. In fact, after the Pretoria test or the Centurion test, he sort of had a word with not exactly a word, but some harsh words with Kagiso Rabada, where he told him to pull up his socks because if Rabada performs, South Africa is going to win, and that's exactly what happened because unfortunately Nokia wasn't playing. So Rabada had to come to the party, and that's exactly what he did. Is that one spell where he took 4 wickets or 3 wickets, like in no time, changed the tide for us, because that was the turning moment for me in the Test series at least, where South Africa showed that they had the will to fight, and despite all adversity, they could still triumph.
I
So
think
that,
Rabada really came good in the limited over series, because in the Test match series, I think
he did
he
play the
only
limited overs, Dave.
he played the limited
No,
overs.
he didn't. He was rested.
Oh, sorry. I was talking
That's
about
in GD.
Babuma.
You're talking about in
Babuma's
GD.
batting. Sorry, sorry,
Was
sorry. I beg
batting
your pardon. I was talking about Babuma's batting, because I cannot forget that ODI where Rassi and Babuma had that fantastic
100%.
stand. But we'll come to that later. You
Yeah,
first
yeah, yeah.
describe
We'll
Rabada.
come to the ODIs later. So that was Dean Elgar Rabada. Then there was another find that we got at the number 3 position called as Keegan Peterson. So
Hmm.
how did
I think
he
he was the
impress
sign
you?
of the Test series. Yes,
He was.
yes.
He's the highest scorer also, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah.
So what did you think about
And
him? His technique, his form,
he was
his
very elegant.
ability?
He was very elegant, very promising. He didn't look like somebody who was just starting out, in his
Yeah, he
in
was
his
just two
international
tests old,
career.
Dave, heading into the first test. He played 2 tests in the
Exactly,
West Indies, and that's
exactly,
about it. Yeah.
exactly. And what I liked is that the harder that Jasprit Bumrah tried to bounce him and get into the body line frame of
Hmm.
his batting, the more resolute did he seem on the back foot and just whipping it away and just just kind of the feathery touch down the leg side. And his game on the onside is beautiful to watch. I think if South Africa deserved somebody up the order, right after the opening cauldron, then I think it's Keegan Pearson, somebody like him. And I'm glad that in him they have a very balanced, cool-minded, cool-headed, talented
Number
batter
three. Hmm.
who can at number three you can spur them to bigger heights, because this is a team. When South Africa play well, then I think the universally cricket seems more alive than before, and I think fans are always buzzing because you don't want to see teams like South Africa down for that long, and very able presence, a very sparkling talent that we have amidst us. Somebody whose batting will bring more joy. And now that people like De Kock are absent in the Test fray,
Hmm.
it's up to the likes of Bavuma, Peterson, Rassi, and this one,
Varaina.
and Varaina,
Yeah, yeah.
Kyle Varaina, to take the flag to higher heights.
So Dave, some years back we lost a KP and now we won a KP.
Yeah,
So
Keegan
do you
and
want to
Pearson.
throw some light on that?
Yeah, let's refrain from the other KP who's found in the West Indian Islands, Tyrone Pollard.
No, no, we're
Let's
not
just
going
stick
there.
to the
We're just
states.
talking about the South African
Yeah,
KPs here.
yeah, it will be very interesting. I feel in the due time to discover how we can fare against the Kiwi pace attack. It's a very promising troika of Tim Southey
Yeah.
and Trent Bolt and
Neil Wagner.
Neil Wagner, not your average bouncer, man. So it'll be very exciting to see how Peterson tackles
Add Kyle
that
Jamieson
pace of
also to
bowling.
that. It's quite formidable.
It's a very formidable bowling attack. You're absolutely right. So let's see. But at least the start has been solid, and he brings a lot of stability to any kind of fluttering that one may sense in the South African batting lineup. And I think that's for a good cause.
Right. Dave, before we dwell into the ODI series, I wanted to talk to you about Aiden Markram's opening form. There have been calls for him to be rested from the test match, from the upcoming New Zealand series, though he's in the squad. And there have been calls for Cyril Hervey, who is a replacement, comes from Durban to open with Dean Elgar. Do you think that is it time that South Africa should drop Markram, or do you think that they should persist with him for some more time?
I would not want to make a call about dropping someone and picking someone else on his behalf, but in his absence rather. But to be honest, Aiden Markram has been hugely disappointing.
Hmm.
Um, when somebody like Markram with that sense of timing and touch of class in his batting pops up
Hmm.
onto your screen, you
Hmm.
want to see an outflow of runs,
Hmm.
huge runs. But instead,
Hmm.
what we have here is a vacuum of runs. The
Hmm.
guy found it tough to even manage 10 to 20 runs in a single inning. There were occasions like that. He was tested by the bounce. He was a little brittle in his technique, and I think the Indian pacers made good use of it. Even in the ODIs, except the one
The
occasion
second
where
ODI in which he
where
scored
he
a
was
40 odd to
unbeaten,
chase a target. Yeah.
yeah, where he was unbeaten at one end was some respite, but it came, as they say in classical cricketing lingo, far too less and too late in the day. So I
Hmm.
think he was disappointing where the test matches stood. But given he has time and age on his hands, he should come back strongly. But what do you do? Do you just persist with him, or do you actually make him realize the lesson that you just cannot be taking your presence for granted, and the fact that much like India, South Africa also is buzzing with talents. And you rightly spoke about the other possible candidates. So why don't you tell me
Cyril
why you
Ledvi. Yeah, he
why
comes
do you
from
like?
Durban. Yeah. He's been scoring heaps of runs in domestic cricket. But
Hmm.
the guy that I would want to see if Aiden Markram was ever dropped would be Peter Milan. If you remember, he opened, he's Janeman Milan's elder brother. He's the eldest
Elder brother.
Milan.
Yeah.
Peter, Andre, and then
There are
Janeman.
three, right?
Yeah, Peter,
Yeah.
Andre, and Janeman. So Peter played pretty decently against England, the Test series that we lost 3-1. But he could be and he was pretty decent against the India A team also before the Indian tour of South Africa happened. So I would want to see him in the Test lineup. But now that we have Cyril Levy, he's
You
also
need to
good.
have a
Make no
backup.
mistake, he's not good. Yeah, he's not bad. I mean, he's pretty decent, Cyril Levy. But for me, Peter Malan could have been a candidate. But having said that, I wouldn't want to drop Markram so soon for the simple reason that if he gets his form, he is that formidable Test opener who can get you quick starts.
He
And he
can, but I think he
complements.
needs to demonstrate that in the middle. That's all that we
Yeah,
need to.
so I think that at least the two tests against New Zealand should be his trial by fire. And if he still doesn't perform, he could be dropped for the Bangladesh series as well as the England series. Basis where he
There's a
stands
series
then.
against Bangladesh also, which is happening, is it?
Yeah, so Bangladesh is coming to South Africa for I think two test matches and three T20s.
Yeah.
Three ODIs, sorry, not T20s. And hopefully those ODIs should be a part of the Super League. I mean, I'm hoping against hope. Uh, Having said that, I would still persist with Markram for the two test matches against New Zealand. See how it goes because Christchurch, I think it's the Hagley Oval at Christchurch where the two tests are happening. Those are going to be bouncy pitches. But having
I
said
was going
that,
to say that.
uh, the bouncy pitches also aid Markram because he likes that bounce that he can capitalize on to play his strokes. If you saw his some dismissals were rather unfortunate where his leaving was under question. I think Bumrah got him twice on something which should have been well left, but that was castled. I mean, the stumps were castled with that. So
Yeah.
maybe on the bouncy tracks in New Zealand, he can prove his worth.
Sorry,
So
speaking of Bumrah, what do you think of his battle with Marco Jensen?
Ah, we should have. I forgot to talk
Can
about
we
Marco
talk about
Jansen.
Marco
Yeah,
Jensen
we
also?
have to talk on him before we get into the
The
T20 series,
players,
the ODI
right there.
series. Yeah, I mean, they've honestly, before I get to answering this question, South Africa suddenly has unearthed so much of talent. There's Keegan Peterson who's come to the fore. There's Marco Jansen. Rabada's display in test matches was phenomenal. Dean Elgar's leadership in test matches was phenomenal. Bavuma is the small, mighty rock who's standing in ODI and T20 cricket. And his contribution in tests has also grown by leaps and bounds. Razi van der Dusen is like, I mean, the whole of Johannesburg is proud of what this guy is achieving right now. So there's so much happening for South African cricket right now that it completely slipped my mind that we had to talk about Marco Jansen also, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So I think the Bumrah Jansen tussle was uncalled for. I mean, it's just in the heat of the moment,
Yeah.
and like what stays on the field should be left on
They've
the
been
field.
teammates at Mumbai Indians, I believe.
They are. Though I don't know whether
Same team.
Jansen's got an IPL game till now or not.
I'm not sure, but
Uh,
then that's what
yeah,
everybody was saying. They've
but
been teammates.
if we can spend 5 minutes on Jansen, the bounce that the guy got with his height and with his action doesn't seem one of those menacing actions, if you know what I mean. He has this nice measured, rather lazy run up towards the crease, but
Yeah.
very surprisingly, he gets those bouncers at 140 kph, which take
Yeah.
batsmen by surprise. Like if you see a Bumrah, he's hustling towards the stumps in his latter part that he's approaching the wicket.
He
But
has a rhythmic run up, It just slowly builds up.
Jansen,
And Bumrah.
Bumrah, okay. But
I'm
Jansen
talking
seems
about
very lazy running to the
yeah.
wicket. But with the bounce and with the pace that he gets, it's phenomenal. And mind you, his batting also, though he hasn't showed it to the level that is expected, he can be your next bowling all-rounder for South African cricket. And he has that temperament.
Oh,
So he's been mighty impressive there.
more power to South Africa, man. They should.
And imagine so you have Ngidi, you have Rabada, you have the other Kolpak returnee, Duan Olivier, who sort of lost some pace, but he's still among the wickets. You have Jansen, and then you add Nokia to that.
Yeah.
What do you think about this pace attack, Dave? I
Well,
mean, does it
it's
get
got a
better?
bit of power. Yeah, it can't get better. Can't get better. Dwayne Pretorius as well, I mean,
Yeah,
he's
that
been
is more in limited overs cricket. I'm talking from a test point of view. If South Africa takes this attack when they go to England, it's going to be phenomenal.
super. Will be super. Absolutely. I think
So,
the future belongs to
hmm.
South Africa in this regard.
So now coming to the ODI leg of this tour, tell me about the Indian mindset having lost the Test series 2-1 with then a new captain in KL Rahul. I mean, an interim captain, but nevertheless a new captain taking over the mantle. So, what do you think India was thinking getting into the ODI series? I mean, did you feel that they were under pressure, or this could actually release their pressure to win those ODI series at least?
Yeah, they were under pressure. They were under pressure because, one didn't really expect the kind of battering that India received that they would actually get at the end of the day from South Africa. That is still a weak team when you consider the names that India commands, on paper to be very much more powerful than what South Africa has. And then
Mhm.
for all the young, exceptional talent of South Africa to rise through the ranks in the series. So India were definitely under pressure. And I think, it was this teams like India will always be under pressure. People will expect Indians to perform out of their skins, to continuously bring out rabbits from the hat on the stage. And when that doesn't happen, then it's kind of a deafening blow into the gut. And that's pretty much what happened. And then on to add cherry on top, there was this added pressure of Virat Kohli getting that elusive 100, and then he got those beautiful 50s. Even if he got out for a duck in the second ODI, but still he got those beautiful 50s, and those were very crafty innings. Still seems that the man has a lot to offer on to Indian cricket. But yeah, there was pressure, and we weren't really settled. So it was more of a journey of self exploration, I would say,
Mm.
of so many talents. And there was constant change also in the lineup. In one match you had so Bumrah was the constant
Yeah. They,
across the games. And then you were trying to mix up the lineup. Ashwin played in the limited over series, so that was good. Chehal was brought in. I was most personally very happy for Shikhar Dhawan's batting. Seems he still
mm.
has a lot to offer, and his time away from wearing the Indian jersey has perhaps brought him more closer to the importance and vitality of the Indian top order, of all the stuff that he was missing. He was able to pounce onto the opportunity which South Africa provided. So I think it was a it was a nicely contested series, but then South Africa had the momentum, they had the winning mantra, and then the added boost in form of the confidence of winning the Test series. So I
Mm.
think they took everything in their stride, and then they went out on an all-out attack, never looking back at anything. And then the two informed batters, Bavuma and Rassi,
Mm.
they became too big a challenge for Indians to keep in check. And in the end, we have that fantastic match-winning stand, a mega score, and the first ODI, an unforgettable result. We didn't really expect Indian bowlers to get the kind of pounding which they got in the end.
Do you think de Kock calling time on Test cricket has actually spurred up his one-day game or limited overs game, considering he
I don't
scored?
know. I'm not a fan of his decision of calling it quits in tests,
Hmm.
but definitely maybe he took his own decision. He wasn't under any kind of a pressure.
Hmm.
When you don't have players like AB, Faf, um, Philander, Mockle anymore, you do rely on talents like Dickok to save the day.
Hmm.
And then Dickok then himself calling time on his Test career was kind of a surprise. So maybe he understood the importance of the one format where he has dazzled from the word go. And one remembers his maiden outing, limited overs outing against India.
Hmm.
He was stunning one century after another.
Yeah.
And then that was a time when South Africa had forged a beautiful opening, left hand, right hand opening pair of arms.
Amla and
And
de Kock.
that was unforgettable. Yeah, those were the days where Bhuvneshwar Kumar was the fastest Indian bowler in that lineup. So that was interesting. And then to have de Kock still going strong and that glorious century.
In the third
Um,
ODI. Yeah.
yeah, he scored now 7 ODI hundreds against India, and I think that's a remarkable achievement. So in some ways, yeah, the experience it just came to the party. The first game he looked a little fidgety, he was a little unsettled. He was
Mm.
taking his own time. He wasn't as fluent as what one saw in the final game
Yeah.
at Glorious
In
Century. So
fact,
yeah,
even in the second game, his opening partnership with Yaniman Malan to chase that steep target
yeah,
of I think 287,
yeah.
if
And
I'm not mistaken.
I was
They
sad
were
to see
rollicking
Malan
sir.
miss out on a
91,
hundred.
91,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was surely that should have been a three-figure score, but nonetheless, he made up for the lost chance in the first ODI.
Mm. Do you think South Africa is settled in their at least their ODI opening combination with Yaniman Malan and Dicko? Do you
Oh
think that
yeah,
they should persist with that?
they should.
Or is there a
They
possibility of moving Markram up? You see that happening? No.
I think there's a possibility of Markram scoring more runs first. That should be the first possibility. Whatever order he comes into play, he should really,
But
it's about
honestly,
time.
yeah, I don't see him getting dropped in the limited overs aspect, at least the limited over setup, because he offers quite a bit with the ball. And Bavuma has been
Did
using
you
him
saw his
pretty, sorry,
Did you note his batting in the T20 World Cup last year? I
phenomenal.
remember clearly the
At
game
number
against
four,
West Indies. That was the
that
kind of
was the mark. That that actually
spark.
started with Pakistan when Pakistan toured South Africa in April, I think, last year. And
Yeah.
when the major chunk of our team had gone to play the IPL,
Hmm.
that time Markram came to the fore with Yanimin Malan and he started showing his impressive short format cricket.
Aiden Kyle Markram has to now score for South Africa.
Yeah, because
That
the
is
other
what
Kyle for West Indies ain't doing much, right?
yeah, of course, that's always the case. The West Indies, one day 224 on the board, and then the next day, despite being 51 without loss in 5 overs, end up losing the game. So that's I
True.
mean, West Indies, sorry. So what can you say? But yeah,
Dave, do you think
interesting.
that you saying something?
I'm saying interesting team.
You think the last one day where India was so close to winning it and then fell short by 4 runs, that sort of summed up India's series of what could have been?
Yes, yes, and it also kind of gave us a good idea of what India can do if probably Shardul Thakur is promoted up the order.
Hmm.
To me, he's series after series. The Shardul Thakur produces something which is worth to be considered awe-inspiring. And he had this fantastic half century recently, which it wasn't an eye opener, but it was an eye opener towards all those people who. And I mean, I don't really understand the Twitter culture of just making everything Lord Thakur and this very emotional Indian psyche of just hyping a player to an extent that Tendulkar became God. Well, of course, for the right reasons, but then Lord Thakur. I mean, let's just focus all that attention on how to groom a player who's already bursting with so much of talent. He's a brave campaigner. He's an honest guy. He's not somebody who's out there to sledge the
Yeah.
opponent, who will be necessarily stationed at silly mid off or short mid wicket to just continuously chirp
Hmm.
expletives out on batsmen. He's somebody who wants to improve his game. His game came to the fore. He was. I remember a particular stroke he played of Rabada. I think this was the second test. He hammered him over 6. It was a quick delivery. It was 141 or 120, 144 k's per hour, and that was wonderful to watch. So I think the key standout for India is exactly what could have been. They still need to get their the top three right in the order. We need to have a more settled spin attack. It's nice to see Chehel back, but is again Chehel the right option to go to? Um, you know, can other spinners be accommodated? Has time come? Um,
At least when it comes to
there's no
selfies,
dearth of
I'm sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Never mind the selfies; they do happen all the time, much more than the cricketing extravaganzas. But yeah, and of course, Deepak Chahar.
Yeah, I was gonna come
He's
to
still
him as the
well.
next question. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'm sure the critics of Rahul Dravid's tutelage of Indian team will not forget that it's under Dravid's guidance that he was encouraged to go out
Mhm.
there, express himself with the bat. The end result was that half century.
He played fantastically well.
That
Yeah.
was a nice no.
In fact, if it
He's a
wasn't
nice
for
cricketer.
Deepak, I think South Africa would have
Yeah,
won the game much earlier, much earlier.
yeah.
And
He
in
hung
fact,
in there,
when
took the game very deep.
yeah, Chahal hit that last shot where India could have still managed the victory instead of going for that aerial shot. The expression that Chahar had on his face possibly summed up so close yet so far. Because, Dave, it's so funny that it's always South Africa who's grabbing defeat from the jaws of victory. And then to see an opposition do that, I mean, was a very refreshing sight for me.
Yeah, and a
So,
heartening one too. You being a
very
diehard
heartening,
South
very
African
heartening.
fan, I'm sure. No,
So,
but
they,
it's I'll tell you what. I think the biggest winner, the biggest takeaway rather from the series is that at a time where people expected South Africa to come out with fighting sessions or sessions where they would fight, they took the entire series away.
yeah,
They
true.
won both the ODIs and tests. So I
And
think 2022 has emerged with a big bang, a resounding march of victory for South Africa.
And we should also be cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of off-field things that are happening to South African cricket as we speak. Their coach,
Yeah,
Mark Boucher, is under tremendous scrutiny with the court hearing and all. Despite all those ills, they've managed to pull off two impressive series victories that makes the whole triumph even sweeter.
it's the classic analogy of you on a long drive inside a car with somebody with your co-passenger playing loud blaring music,
Mm.
and then you just quietly switching on your hoodie and
Yeah.
just sitting like that and just refraining from all the noise and madness which is around you. And South Africans have done magically well on that count. So
It's how you
kudos to
write
them, or
your
more power to South Africa.
cherished pieces in your house. I think that's the perfect analogy that I
I
can come up
used
with.
to. I used to. It's been now almost one full month I've gone without an article. So to
No, no, I'm
clean
sure
it
you'll
up
be
and
back with a
start.
bang.
Let's
Uh,
see, Pranay. Let's see. I'm raring to go. Just waiting for this diehard winters to just
yeah.
get away, man. It's just I
Because
envy
I'm
all of
actually
us
waiting for
players.
your next article on CaughtAtPoint and the other websites.
CaughtAtPoint Point has to debut for 2022 yet. It's yet to
Mhm.
debut. I have got a couple of interesting
I'll
pieces from.
I'll do a preview piece on South Africa versus New Zealand for sure.
Let's
Because
let's
there's
let's spend a minute on this series.
yeah,
I don't seem to remember the last time around when the Proteas went to New
I'll tell
Zealand
you,
and what.
2017, uh, just after South Africa played Sri Lanka in South Africa, they went for a tour down under. And we still had Moni Mokkel in the team, Dale Steyn in the team, AB de Villiers in the team, Faf in the team, Dubini in the team, Amla in the team. So you can imagine, I mean, how far that was,
Wow.
how long ago
It
that
was a team
was.
of giants. Team of giants. Wow.
100%. But Dave, before we dissect into the series, I want to ask you one question. Why is it that New Zealand only offers two test matches at home? I mean, that's something which really puzzles me. Why can't it be at least a three-match series? West Indies went there for a two-match series. Bangladesh went there for a two-match series. And now we are
So
going
I
there for a
think
two-match series.
given West Indies' form down in New Zealand, next time they'll just probably happily go for a toss only, because even that they won't be able to win. They have an abysmal record in New Zealand. not the kind of likes you'd want to spend much time harping about. But yeah, I don't know, and that's a very interesting point out there, and I think this is a question worth asking the ICC for. So, are you ready for a series of tweets asking the ICC that why that is? When New Zealand come to India, this time around we had two test matches actually. So,
Yeah, because
actually,
every home series that New Zealand has when it comes to tests is a two test series. Even when South Africa played New Zealand last, there was a two-match test series. I think we won that series 1-0, if I'm not mistaken, thanks to a
mhm,
brilliant partnership between two guys, Quinton de Kock and Themba Bavuma.
mhm.
I think in the second test. But it's been
Right.
so much time has passed that I don't clearly remember the exact minutest details of that partnership, but they did string something brilliantly together. So South Africa
Indeed,
is
man.
going down under not to Australia but to New Zealand after 5 years. So you can imagine the gap.
Just two test matches, quite baffling actually, and yeah, I think the ICC and the Cricket New Zealand are actually poised to answer this, and
Mm.
they should. It's not something what cricket fans would want. Possibly it could be down to a rise of popularity of T20s and possibly a decline in the popularity of Test. But permutations could be just part of our imagination. What, according to you, is going to be the most important facet, some interesting battles which could come to the fore as the Proteas go down visiting New Zealand? Rather.
So, they've two battles pretty straightforward. One is South Africa's pace bowling against New Zealand's batting and vice versa. Because I think both teams have a very good pace attack. Despite the fact that we're missing Nokia for the tournament, but for the series, but still
Why is
with
he not playing?
he has a hip injury, ongoing hip injury. So I don't know till when, but they say he's out for 3 months, possibly to be back against the ODIs when Bangladesh to South Africa, I think in March or April. But don't worry, he'll play the IPL for sure. Uh, but having said that, you have Marco Jansen, you have Kagiso Rabada, Ngidi, and possibly Olivier as South Africa's pace bowling Arsenal versus Wagner, Jameson, Saudi, and Bolt. So the battle of pace attacks is one for sure. And second is that even New Zealand, so to speak, in their batting are slightly thin, with Ross Taylor announcing his all format retirement, or rather retiring from all formats recently. The two players that stand out for me from a New Zealand standpoint would be Devon Conway and Kane Williamson, and how they go about it. Maybe with the able support from Tom Latham and Henry Nichols.
You're right,
You
because
think?
Latham has been in great form. He recently
Yes.
carved a double century.
Yeah.
And personally, I'm a huge fan of Tom Latham. So I think that's going to be interesting. We haven't really seen Tom Latham out against South African bowlers on that many
Mhm.
occasions. And as a matter of fact, New Zealand playing South Africa in tests all that much recently. So I think that's going to be interesting. Also, with coming of an end of an era in the form of Ross Taylor, I think it's now the fulcrum of New Zealand's youth is going to revolve around batsmen like Tom Latham. And he's a class act. He's got all the strokes in the book. He's very strong on very strong square on the offside. There's little. Um, he's quiet. He's patient. He likes to build a classic test match portrait. Applying all the patience and charisma and watchfulness. There's this quiet sense of surety about Tom Latham, which I like. I've always liked. Far more fluent than what, let's say, batsmen of his make are in the form of Craig Brathwaite, so on and so forth. So it's going to be very interesting how Tom Latham approaches the newfound vigor in South African fast
Pace
bowling.
Arsenal, yeah.
Pace Arsenal now, pace Patrick, call it what you may, but I'm sure New Zealand are gonna grind it out. They're not gonna give up so easily. They're very very strong at home. We know what they have done to big teams in the past.
Yeah.
India being one of them. So that's going to be an interesting series to watch out for. Anything else from the South Africa India recent series you want to talk about? Anything distinguished? Anything specific?
Not so
We like.
specific to the series, but I have a question for BCCI, Cricket South Africa, and the ICC, which is why won the ODI series a part of the Super League? Considering both India and South Africa are not in the best position there on the table. I think South Africa is number 10 and India is number 7, if I'm not mistaken. So God knows that both needed these wins or the series to like grab some points to be automatically in the next 2023 World Cup. So I mean, I don't know why this wasn't a part of the World Super League.
Yeah, that's quite baffling actually.
Yeah,
These are very very prominent limited overs sides. I don't know. Cricket, the more it entertains, the more it leaves you, um, in anguish. Just staring over a strange predicament such as this. So
hmm.
yeah, I think that's something which we should again expect an answer for. I'm not sure whether we're gonna hear anything. There haven't been any articles I've read about this puzzling scenario,
They
so to speak.
haven't. No, so it's just
Yeah,
that it wasn't a part of the Super League, which was unanimously agreed by both the boards. That's about it.
you know.
But
It just leaves
why
behind
is it
the
that
simple.
that scenario no one has an answer?
Just leaves behind this idea that it was considered kind of a vague series. Was it not too important? I mean, both the teams were playing out of their skin
But
to win
exactly,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Contested so mightily well.
exactly.
All the more
So,
reason.
and I think any match that happens on the international stage is an important match. Yeah. I mean, you can't be deciding what's important and what's not when you're representing your country.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
Earlier
let
on
me
at the start, you were talking about
Simon
the
Harmer.
yeah Simon
So,
Harmer's
yeah,
comeback
so
against
he's come
Proteas.
back into the South African fold after I think at least 5, 6 years. He last played a test for South Africa against India in the 2015-16 series, where we had gone to the subcontinent. I mean, South Africa had gone to the subcontinent. So it's very good to have him back. He's been brilliant in the county, in the English county cricket. He's taken about 300 wickets, if I'm not wrong, for Essex. And he's been
That's
quite
quite a lot.
decent.
Quite
Yeah,
a
and
lot.
he's over his time. I mean, I think from 2016 or 2017, he's been playing till 2021. Now that Kolpak does not exist, he's back in the South African fold. And he's been chosen as the second spinner to Keshav Maharaj. So it's very interesting. And he's a very capable off spinner. Plus, he's decent with the bat in the low order. So if South Africa might just decide to play Harmer over Maharaj, who knows? Four pace
Yeah, I
bowlers
think
and a spinner.
they would. I could be wrong here. I don't know anything as such about Mr. Harmer, but Keshav Maharaj to prefer another spinner over Keshav Maharaj,
I
he's
think
also
that's
yet.
highly unlikely because Maharaj is brilliant. I mean, there,
2021, that majestic hat trick against the West Indies in West
yeah,
Indies.
yeah, yeah. There are no two
This
ways
is when
about
the
that.
team. This is when the team visited the Caribbean after over a decade. That was
Hmm.
something special.
South
Wish
Africa
it was
won
there
2-0,
again.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they did, and with quite some ease.
Yeah. No, no, he's truly the Maharaj of South African cricket. No doubt about that. But just to have Harmer in the squad is very exciting because after a long, long time, do we have a very capable off spinner in our ranks. So
Yeah.
the whole prospect of a world quality off spinner makes me really excited. Now let me put you in a go on, Dev.
No, I was just saying. Speaking of world quality, there's this young South African batsman who everybody
We'll
is
come to
eyeing.
that. Before that, let me put you in a spot. What do you see the result of the South African New Zealand series? Give me a prediction.
Draw. Series would be a draw.
1-1 or 0-0?
I hope it's 1-1. I hope South Africa win one test. I hope New Zealand makes South Africa work for the win. I hope New Zealand put enough pressure on South Africa for us to see some golden cricketing nuggets
Hmm.
down on those fast and bouncy New Zealand turfs. I think it's gonna be one heck of a series. I'm really looking forward to that one, especially because
Sure.
you are so charged up about it. So you have passed on your
I'll be getting up at
all the fire
3:30
on.
every day to watch that. 3:30
I
in
mean,
the morning.
under no circumstances am I waking up at 3:30. That's gonna be very very tough,
And
but for sure.
who's broadcasting it? Amazon Prime.
What?
Yeah,
And
Prime
this series
is
going to be broadcasted in India.
Amazon Prime is broadcasting all New Zealand cricket in India.
So no television
No.
channel.
So you can only watch it on OTT. Like earlier it was fan code, now it's Amazon Prime. So for all the viewers who want to see South Africa, New Zealand, it's available on Amazon Prime. Uh, Now coming on to
The
the
most important South
best,
African league right now.
uh, the icing on
A
the
name
cake
even
for
bigger
South
than
Africa.
AB de Villiers right now. A
The
name
icing on
perhaps
the
even bigger than AB.
Yeah. So let me ask you the first question. 450s in the 4 matches that he's played, and 100 amongst them. Deval Brevis, who many call him Baby AB. What do you think?
Well, for starters, he's not AB's baby. He's Brevis, his own man, and Brevis is possibly another synonym for being brave. That's the kind of adjective that his batting echoes, and a very free spirited cricketer of what I've seen of him, and I've seen mostly highlights of his batting. Has shots
His batting
all
itself
round.
is a highlight. Yeah.
Yeah, his batting itself is the highlight. So I think to just add to your point that we have this awesome unfolding of new South African talent. I think this one just can't wait to see him in South African colors at the big stage. It's about time.
Speaking about that, there is a possibility. I've seen some conversations or rather some articles where some writers or rather authors are pushing for his case in the ODI
Oh,
series against Bangladesh.
okay.
Yeah, so to blood him into the international fold. But before we get on to that, the guy has put his hat in for an IPL contract also.
Who
So
is
do
it?
you think that IPL right now for Deval Brevis is the right way forward, or should he get into international fold and then get into the IPL? Yeah. So first you
I think
answer that and
IPL.
then I'll give you my point of view.
Well, I think it's a yes and no. The the kind of challenge and opportunity. IPL is not just a challenge and an opportunity. That the IPL unfurls on you, it can be overwhelming. I'm reminded of youngsters in the IPL, some very very young talents. Then I can't help but think of Unmuk Chand, who became the first Indian batter to appear in the Big Bash League in Australia, and he wasn't terrific success at all in the IPL. And now we see Unmuk Chand having made the switch to USA cricket. So I think that's a definite big step forward for his career where it is right now.
So he's qualified for
So
America to
maybe
play cricket.
he's got a no objection certificate from
Okay.
Indian authorities and
Okay.
administration to represent USA. So let's see how that goes. Um, some big names in the past, even from the women's arena, have made a switch to USA. For example, the first Pakistani woman, the batter rather, that's the term nowadays, to hit a ODI
Hmm.
century. Nain Abidi, she's now gonna be representing the USA too. She also got a no objection certificate from Pakistan cricket. But I think where it stands right now, possibly establish himself first in the international waters and then make the giant stride towards the IPL, if that's necessarily the way forward for any up and coming cricketer. Um, but yeah, I mean, what's important is not what he plays. What's important is whether Brevis can appear soon for South Africa. And knowing his bravado in batting, there's little scope of doubt that that day is going to come soon. I'm all for it. I'm very excited to see what he can bring to South Africa.
Same here, Dev. I 100% agree with you, and I wouldn't be happier if when I see him play against Bangladesh if that happens. But talking about IPL and Brevis getting eyeing a contract there, I would rather want him to play maybe 2, 3 more seasons in international cricket, gain more experience, and then possibly look at IPL.
Yeah.
Because I want him to keep South Africa as his top priority over the IPL. That's the way
I understand
that's the
this.
way I see it.
Sometimes I understand the sense of urgency of those cricketers who are really struggling for bread and butter. There's a lot of cricketers who aren't really paid all that well. Those who come from the Caribbean. So I understand their urgency to be in the IPL, but that's not the case for this go-getter from South
He's
Africa
just
at
19,
this
yeah.
point
So
in time.
there's a
So
lot
why
of
not
time for him
actually
to play
play
IPL.
club?
So guys, we've been speaking for a good 35, 40 minutes now. It's always a pleasure to speak to Dave, get his thoughts on South Africa, India, his favorite West Indies, and international cricket overall. So this has been a very insightful episode, at least for me. I'm sure Dave's also had a nice time. Uh, so till we come back with another episode on CaughtAtPoint, this is Pranay, Rangra, and Dave Tyagi signing off. Dave, any last words for our viewers?
Yeah, so viewers, what a start we've had to 2022. It's been pretty astounding, so to speak, to see South Africa challenge an up and building South Africa challenge a very powerful in lineup. And I think if 2022 could be a year, then I think it's a year of surprise outcomes and some new promises that have come to the fore of the kinds we saw in South Africa. So I think stay tuned for all the cricket because it's a long year. There's a lot of cricket we played. 2022 is gonna bring us up and close with yet another edition of the Cricket World Cup, the shortest format, that is the T20 World Cup. So there's so much to talk about. There's so much happening in women's cricket. We've had a commanding, nerve-wracking, nail-biting draw in the women's Ashes. The first test between Australia women's and England women's, and Heather Knight's team were closing out on a draw and then closing out on a victory. I beg your pardon, and only for the match to end up in a draw. So leave nothing to chance. Leave nothing to regret. Watch all the cricket. Support the under 19 cricketers who are coming to the fore. There's cricket everywhere. PSL is happening. That's another exciting tournament. Very rare are days when somebody like Babar Azam is trolled, and for his very slow innings the other night, that was a surprise outcome. So leave nothing to chance. 2022, I think, is gonna unfold. Too many surprises, but I think everything will be on the positive. Cricket will be a winner. So fantastic first episode of recording with Pranay here, and we'll bring you more outstanding content here from CaughtAtPoint stable, and can't wait to talk to you again, Pranay.
Yeah, Dave. Dave, just to end the show, 2022, there are 3 twos in that. If you add the three, it becomes 6. And I'm waiting for you to fire sixes in your writing soon, man.
I hope so too. I hope so too. I'll try
So
not to miss one.
2022 is going to be the 6 hitting season for Dave when it comes to his writing. On that happy note, this is Pranay and Dave signing off till we bring another podcast on the CaughtAtPoint show. Guys,
In
thank
a
you.
week's time, guys. In a week's time. See you soon again. Bye bye.